And we're all here, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you to everyone who's here to be with us tonight. We appreciate your support and your involvement. We'll go ahead and start with an opening by Councilmember Catherine Buse.
Thank you. I'd like to offer my opening in the form of a prayer. Our dear Heavenly Father, as we gather here together to do the people's business, we ask that we will be guided by Thee. We ask Thee to help us to have clear minds. We ask Thee to help us that we can remember to think of those in our community and to be able to help all the marginalized and provides support for the whole spectrum that we represent. We ask Thee to please bless those that are in need. We ask Thee to please help those that are in mourning at this time, and bless the families of the fallen police officers and help them at this very difficult time. We thank Thee that we can live in such a beautiful place, and we thank Thee for the precipitation that we've received, and we ask Thee to continue to bless us with moisture. And these things we pray in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. And please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Catherine. Appreciate that. Okay, review of the agenda.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the agenda with the following amendment, that ordinance, I think it's 8A, read 2025-27.
Perfect. Can I get a second on that?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda with that one amended item. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. The minutes from last time. Does anyone want to make a motion about the minutes from our last meeting?
I'd move to approve the minutes from last meeting of, actually there's two sets of August 12th and August 19th.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes from August 12th and August 19th. Is there any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I don't think we have anyone here from the executive's office, so we'll skip past that part. Items of special interest, we have well, that's part of the executive's office as well. There was a proclamation recognizing September 15th through 21st as National Diaper Need Awareness Week. There is a proclamation. I don't know if you want me to read it, or should we see if someone from the executive shows up later? Let me.
It's right, it's in our minute, okay.
Yeah, okay. So, this is the proclamation. It says, whereas diaper need, the condition of not being able to afford a sufficient supply of clean diapers to keep babies and toddlers clean, dry, and healthy, can adversely affect the health and well-being of children and their families. And whereas national surveys and research studies report that nearly 1 in 2 families struggle with diaper need, and 48% of families delay changing a diaper due to extend the available supply. And whereas a daily or weekly supply of diapers is generally an eligibility requirement for babies and toddlers to participate in child care programs and quality early education programs that enable children to thrive and parents to work. And whereas many parents struggling with diaper needs report missing an average of 5 days of work each month due to an insufficient supply of diapers. And whereas without enough diapers, babies and toddlers risk infection and health problems that may require medical attention, resulting in medical costs, and parents may be prevented from accessing child care needed to go to work or school, thereby destabilizing the family's economic prospects and well-being. And whereas the people of Cache County recognize that diaper need is a public health issue, and addressing diaper need can lead to economic opportunity for the state's families and communities and improved health for children, thus ensuring all children and families have access to the basic necessities required to thrive and reach their full potential. And whereas Cache County is proud to be home to trusted community-based organizations, including Little Lambs Diaper Bank, that recognize the importance of diapers in ensuring health and providing economic stability for families, and thus distribute diapers to families through various channels. And whereas through their important work of addressing diaper need, diaper banks play a critical role in supporting families, improving infant health and well-being, and advancing our local and state economic growth. Now therefore, Cache County does hereby recognize and proclaim the week of September 15th through September 21st, 2025 as National Diaper Needs Awareness Week in Cache County, and thanks the Little Lambs Diaper Bank, their staff, volunteers, and donors for their courageous service during this crisis, and encourage the citizens of Cache County to donate generously to diaper banks, diaper drives, and support those organizations that collect and distribute diapers to families struggling with diaper need, so that all of Cache County children and families can thrive and reach their full potential. And so I would accept a motion to accept, as a council, to accept that proclamation.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the proclamation recognizing National Diaper Need Awareness Week. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I will sign that and, sorry. Okay, I'm gonna put that back down, the executives. Okay. We're gonna skip 6B for just a moment until we have someone else that shows up. We'll move on to 6C, the American West Heritage Center Tractor Barn Wraps proposal.
Good evening, Council. The item of special interest in question here is proposing the securing of additional $125,000 for the American West Heritage Center's Tractor Barn Education Building. So the ask here essentially is the American West Heritage Center needs an additional $125,000. Last year, they were previously awarded $125,000 and were encouraged to apply for the second half of the needed funds next year. They're requesting the funds now to take advantage of an offer by a private donor to match a dollar for dollar amount, which would allow for the construction to start in the fall of 2025 instead of later, which if you guys haven't tried doing construction during the winter or early spring, I do not recommend it. It's not fun. So there is that to consider as well. But yeah, given that the private donor is has the offer to match the county's investment, that if we assume that this would be awarded next year by RAPS as well, this would essentially be saving money, in essence, from my understanding. But as for the space itself, the new building is a multi-use facility that will create year-round educational experiences for elementary school children and adults and provide space for community events. So, like I said, the reason why it's being asked now is that the American West Heritage Center was encouraged to apply last year. However, given this opportunity with the donor, it's a great advantage to take, in my opinion. So, but if I do say so, I think there are several members of the public who are here who could answer any additional questions, who are more familiar with this.
Council members, do you have questions that you want to ask either the director of the Heritage Center Board or Julie Hollis, who is also here with us from our tourism department?
Like just for Andrew, before we get to that, the remaining budget in RAPS I've looked at, it was like around 400.
Correct.
And just to clarify, that is not for overages, that's just our reserve fund. That's what we keep in reserves.
Yeah, this came up in the Cache Valley Visitors Bureau meeting too. They were in support.
I believe they are contributing as well, and any contributions that are made are going to be matched dollar for dollar by a private donor, which is fabulous.
I think it's a wonderful opportunity. Like, boy, where else you put a dollar and you get another dollar, even within the RAPS programs, whatever it is. I think it's a great use of some money right now. It's a great opportunity, and it gets them going. And the facilities that they have proposed it's really going to be a neat draw. So
The other bit of context I'll add too is, as we know, a lot of their tourism activities take place outside. So if they have a rainy day, or dare I even say snowy day in the spring, during baby animal days, that's half of their income for the year. So this does provide an opportunity for some generating of revenue despite the weather. And as it says, is the first bullet point, year-round accessibility.
It will, and there's a lot of displays that can be put in and kept, clean and kept for a long time, and that they'll be having inside of there, which I think is huge. So they'll be able to expand that too. So
Okay, I would,
Sandy?
yes.
Where does it have a dollar amount?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking.
I'm searching everywhere. It doesn't have it in the,
it's actually you get to receive that letter
okay.
that was from them that was laid out there.
Yeah, right in the letter, right there. 125.
It's in the second paragraph right there.
So, thank you. So the question I have is, this will be taken into consideration where the intent of the RAPS committee and remembering conversation was, we'll do this staunch of money this year. Come next year, we would entertain the proposal with that idea of, they'll take that into consideration when they come with their proposal in the April, when we receive the
Yeah,
RAPS.
I'm sure
applications
it'll
again.
be on our minds, and maybe the proposal, if we can get it off and going, maybe that proposal will then be scaled back to help just specific items now that they need inside or something. But if we can get the center going, I think that's a huge thing. So,
Other questions for Andrew or any of the representatives that are here from the American West?
believe it's-
Completion date expectation. Do we know an expectation of completion on this? Spring?
We're hoping to start in October if we get approval, and weather dependent. That's probably about a 8-month project, depending on weather. So.
I think it's an awesome opportunity. I mean, like Dave said, we get dollar for dollar. Not many times we're offered that opportunity, so.
One more thing I want to bring up, in a previous meeting, we did mention a policy where we set some sort of timeline on completion, so projects don't get dragged out. Do we want to put a caveat within a year, within 2 years?
Well, our RAPS policy already does have that it has 2 years for completion.
okay.
It's
So
already there.
anything outside of that is when they have to come and apply for an extension.
Okay.
So,
I think that's more what we talked about, is we don't really have a definite parameter policy around the extension policy.
Yeah.
But that first 2 years, that's already written into
Great.
the policy that we have.
into the award
I
funding.
think that if we can, if we vote in favor, at least they know that there's the commitment, then it still has to go through a budget hearing for us to do the final approval on that. But I believe it'd be appropriate for a motion to commit tonight, if that's what the council would like.
So, Dave, so what you're saying is we'd vote on this tonight, then in September, when we come with our budget opening, it would be a line item in the budget opening coming from the RAPS
Yep.
funds, and that's when we'd actually be able to issue that, okay? And it would have the public hearing that is associated with the budget opening
At
process.
least they can go back to the donor saying, we have this, it's
Yeah,
solid. It's
but
just
there's
now
a
gotta go
commitment.
through the formality of the budget hearing.
That's when the 2-year period starts.
Well, I think it'll be done faster than that.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
I would so move that we approve this opportunity for this RAPS allocation of $125,000 to the American West Heritage Center.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this proposal for the American West Heritage Center. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, is Brett here? Yeah, there's Brett. We'll go ahead and go to 6D.
Thank you for taking a few minutes to consider some tax roll corrections. As you know, after May 22nd, the tax roll for the assessor closes and we hand that off to the auditor. Anything that happens after that needs the consent of the governing body, so that's what I'm asking for. There's some things that I believe need to be corrected. And in addition to that, as a separate item is the abatement of taxes on a mobile home. So, the Greenbelt status change, there was 2 of those. That was an error on our part. And then there was about 32 residential exemptions that we received, or residential declarations that we received. So we believe those needed to be changed. I highlighted, maybe the biggest one to bring, I kind of highlighted or had that one highlighted. The Greenbelt one, if you had any questions about that. I don't know if there's any questions. That you'll probably notice that the market value and the proposed market value are the same on all but that one Greenbelt one. So I didn't put all the details of what the taxable amount is, just the market value. But that one, we noticed that it was actually a short-term rental, so that's why it's going up in value. So the others, the market value will stay the same, but the taxable value will change depending on if they get the residential exemption, then that'll change if.
So, go ahead, no, these are homes, a lot of them that were taxed as a second home, but then they've filled out the paperwork that shows that it is their primary residence.
Yeah, there were 4 that were removing the exemption and 28 that were adding the exemption.
Okay.
So I think I talked about in the last meeting or the meeting before, we made a huge effort, Nate made a huge effort to go find a bunch of these second homes, and we made a big push. But some of them have made this declaration, so we're correcting those.
So Brett, we have 2 columns. It says the previous market total and proposed market total. So this doesn't have it. So this goes for how it will be the taxable value for this next year. So we don't know what the total effect will be on the assessment of how much will be collected until it's just how it will be calculated, right?
We know about, I just didn't give that calculation to you.
Okay.
We know about what that is. There's,
Okay.
yeah, we know what I just didn't include it. I just didn't want to give you a massive spreadsheet, but I could certainly send that
Gotcha.
if you wanted that.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, on the residential ones, if they're getting a residential, or if they're going to be receiving it, then it'll be 45% less, yeah, on those homes, the taxable amount.
As primary residence.
As a primary residence, yeah.
Does anyone have any other questions for Brett?
And then the other one on the mobile home, and maybe
No,
you guys should vote on that.
we have to vote on these separately.
Sure, I
So
think
let's
yep.
just talk about them separately if we could. Does anyone have anything else they want to ask to Brett about these tax roll corrections?
On the Greenbelt status change, that wasn't somebody who sold and they didn't get it in, or it was just from the office miss?
You know, it was something that we should have checked a couple more boxes. We've caught a few of these in the past, but they received their notice in July, their truth in taxation notice, and they noticed that they weren't in Greenbelt. It was showing just vacant land, and so they let us know that there was an error in our system. So it just needs to be corrected.
Now, you said there was one though that was in Greenbelt, but it had a shop on it that was actually being rented out,
Yeah.
and it still qualified for Greenbelt? Because of
It
total
does
acreage,
still
or-
it's a fairly large parcel. I didn't put the
Okay,
acreage,
that's-
but it's
that's-
a large parcel.
That's what I was wondering. It must have
And-
been a fairly large parcel.
Yep,
then.
it's a large parcel, and we just assumed it looks like kind of a shed. I mean, it's common on a lot of ag properties, but we noticed later, you can check it out, it's a pretty nice facility inside, and they do rent it out.
What's the mechanism that people have to apply for a business license when they have a rental property, right? Is that how you usually identify buildings as rentals?
We identify them in a number of ways. We do through permits, that's true, but we're searching VRBO, all these websites, we're trying to find them in every way. People tell us, and we just observe, that's a big one. We just see that so we eventually catch most of these, but it sometimes takes a little time.
complaints come in, like you say, from
Yep.
neighbors, and compliance officers go out and check them out and find out that it's not what it says it is.
Yeah,
So,
yep. We're doing our review, obviously, every 5 years. But we hopefully it doesn't go the full 5 years between, when an appraiser actually goes out there. We usually find out before that, but sometimes it's just caught in a review. Yeah.
Okay, does anyone want to make a motion on that, or do you have more questions?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the county assessor's tax roll corrections on 34 parcels as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the county assessor's tax roll corrections that have been presented to us. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
I'm glad you didn't do them one by one.
The other one is the abatement of taxes on a mobile home. It was an old mobile home. We believe that it's basically more expensive to collect at this point than just to write this one off. So, it's not tragic like the last one you approved or anything, just difficult to collect on.
So it's the $228. Is that what we're the amount that we are abating?
Yes, 228.38.
Does the picture show that it's gone?
It is gone.
Yeah, it says it was raised and the owner's gone.
Yep. We believe it was there at the first of the year, so it happened, I think, in the springtime. So this is a recent picture. This is a picture we took.
Is that the one where the shooting happened?
No, it's
that
in the
was-
same
we
park,
already
though.
did that
It's in
one.
the same park. Yeah. And they, the property owner is trying to clean this up, clean up these old mobile homes, and there's quite a few vacant ones in there. Not this one, but another one. There's a new one going on there, so I think it'll be better to get some new homes in there.
Update them.
Update.
Yeah.
Well, at some point, this one was a 1973 model, and these things are really only designed to be lived in 20 years or something. People milk it for 40 or 50, but this adds no value, and it's more costly. They actually end up getting, I think in this case, they got an the court ordered, I can't remember the verbiage, I didn't see that, but it was abandoned basically by the mobile home owner, and so the mobile home park owner got the court to determine that it had been abandoned, so they raised it.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, does anyone have any more questions for Brett on that one? I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion on the abatement of taxes for the mobile home, that we approved that.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the property tax abatement that has been presented to us tonight. Any further discussion? Okay, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Okay, Josh. We'll move to 6E.
It is for me anyway.
Thank you. I don't think, did we send the letter
No,
to you? I've got,
we hadn't seen it yet.
okay, I have 3 copies, 4, and then we can send it afterwards too. But we are requesting at Bear River Health Department we've been in discussions for several years to pursue capitation under the Medicaid capitation model. Currently, we are capitated, the local authorities are capitated for mental health. Bear River Mental Health has been capitated for years under that model. We've been operating under the fee-based model, fee-for-service. We had initially contacted Medicaid about 2 or 3 years ago, asking when we could move to the capitation model, and they were revamping and rehauling a lot of their software and some of their procedures at that time, so they told us we had to wait 2 years. We reached out to them a couple of weeks ago. They told us that the first thing we needed was to submit a written formal request from the local substance abuse authority. So we drafted this letter. Our hope is we're here today. We're going to Box Elder County tomorrow and to Rich County on Wednesday next week. And then our hope is next week we'd be able to submit this letter to Medicaid to formally consider us for the capitation model. I'm happy to answer questions about the capitation model.
Can you just explain overall what it is? Because I didn't know until you and Jordan
Yeah.
explained it to me.
Yeah, so, and I'll give the caveat that I'm a social worker learning the financial side of things a little more. But, so the capitation model, Medicaid uses a formula based on expected number of individuals in our community. So it'd be Cache, Rich, and Box Elder counties who would qualify for Medicaid. And then they give us a lump sum. They give the local substance abuse authority a lump sum to fund substance abuse counseling, substance abuse treatment. In the past, we're actually the last area in the state who is not in the capitated model. And part of that has been that our population was lower, our numbers were lower where it may not have made financial sense. We may have provided more services than we had funding. With our population growth, we're to a point where we would likely find we would have more funding available through this model to provide services to our individuals and families who are suffering from substance use disorders. The other benefit is right now with the model that we're under, any willing provider can provide substance abuse treatment through Medicaid. The county is responsible to pay the match, but we do not have oversight of these other agencies that are providing. And so part of capitation would involve a 90-day window for these other providers to help their clients get to Bear River Health Department for their substance abuse counseling. And we would, much like Bear River Mental Health does now, we would have the ability to subcontract with some other providers. We don't offer residential. There's maybe some things that we would either need to begin to provide or we would need to subcontract with others to provide. But part of that subcontracting would mean we would have oversight, and the local substance abuse authority would be able to have oversight to ensure that there's not fraud taking place, to ensure people are receiving adequate and appropriate treatment. So the increased funding and the increased oversight would be kind of the benefits that we're focused on right now. My understanding is this is just an initial formal request to be considered. There's a review and a process. And my understanding is we would need to come before the local substance abuse authorities again before that became an official move.
This just allows you to start the process.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have any other questions for Josh? Yeah.
Once you're approved, do you have to apply every so often, or how long is that you're recognized under that program? Because I see in your letter it's not going to start till July of 26.
Yeah, so our hope is that we'd be able to have that begin July 1st of 2026. That's the fiscal year that we operate under. They told us they wouldn't be able to let us know if that's feasible until we've sent the formal request. So that's our goal date. I don't know how often. That's one of the things I'll add to, we have questions and things we still have to learn, so.
But I know Bear River Mental Health doesn't come before us periodically to
Yeah.
review their capitation ability, so.
Because it's a substance abuse authority.
Yeah.
So what exactly are we voting for here? Is it just to endorse this letter essentially?
Yes. To endorse this letter to allow them to explore the option to see if it works for our county, for our tri-county, the
It's not
capitation
even
model.
voting for the capitation, yeah.
That would come later when they have all the details.
Have the other counties already signed it?
No, we go to Box Elder tomorrow and we go to Rich County a week from Wednesday.
Okay, anybody else have questions? Anyone want to make a motion?
I will make a motion that we approve the request for Medicaid capitation for substance abuse treatment and let them pursue this and get approved.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the request for the Medicaid capitation substance abuse treatment request. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Okay. And
I get one of these
signed
copies
this one,
signed?
If you want to take it with you. I don't know if you wanted an electronic signature on something else, but we can do that as well. Okay. We can do that too. Thank you, Josh. Okay, we can go back to 6B. We have our Economic Development Director here. Sean, we'll turn some time over to you.
No worries. Good evening, council.
We have a timer. Sorry.
Is there a precedent?
No comment, Councilman. But I am prepared to,
That before.
well, let's just say that over the years, my friend Councilman Erickson has made it clearly known less is more. So I'm prepared to be just that this evening. And then if I can, Andrew, I will share my screen. I only have a few slides because I want less is more. Good evening, Council. I'm Sean Milne. I work for the Bear River Association of Governments, and I am your Economic Development Director for Cache County. I am here this evening in that role with a report for fiscal year 25 funds of the Rural County Grant, or RCG, as well as a request for fiscal year 26. Let me increase this here. All right.
Is this one? No, that one's not working.
Oh, there it is. Thanks. All right. So the Rural County Grant Program, as you likely recall, is a state program created roughly 5 years ago. It allows for up to $200,000 as appropriated by the state legislature for counties of the 3rd through 6th class. Cache County is the chief among the 3rd class counties, the largest of those with that population designation, and is considered rural. And so the Rural County Grant, or RCG, allows for a reasonable application related specifically to economic development, which is measured as either job count, FTEs at or above median wage, CapEx, which is the conversion of ground for property tax accrual or sales tax in terms of economic vitality that's brought to the area. Every year I have to utilize a state mandated CEO board, which stands for the County Economic Opportunity, or CEO Advisory Board. Mr. Councilman Mark Hurd happens to be the chair of our board currently, and Councilman Keegan Garrity is also on our CEO board, as are a number of other folks that represent varying perspectives. Our county goes a little bit above and beyond what the state mandated minimum of those perspectives are. Huge kudos to us. So fiscal year 25, our funds were allocated in the following manner. We have a contract with Bragg, which yours truly, and now a couple of staff members, really only one and kind of a floater, contribute towards helping activities that, well, as described here, there are other communities that have a Sean that are out there trying to woo our businesses to their communities, whether through their expansion, because many of our businesses are very successful at what they do, and to not lose market share, they of course want to grow. Some of those communities would want to see that growth take place in other communities in other states or other communities of this state. We of course would like them to stay here. And then there are those times when businesses may choose to relocate because of a, say, tax environment that's less desirable. One of those located next to the airport about 7 years ago to get out of another state's tax environment, and they've been a really great employer since. They continue to be a great attracting point to other suitors that I get to show from time to time. We host Site Selector FAM tours, which I'll come back and circle to here in a second, and of course, grant writing. Some of those grant writing services, as an example, there's another Rural Communities Opportunity Grant, or RCOG. Providence City applied for such last year to be able to upgrade their sewer line capacity and build a lift station. That ties into economic development because you're probably familiar with the Blackstone headquarters being built on Highway 165. Obviously, when converted use from what that land previously was, there's going to be a greater need for demand on public infrastructure. And as it relates to job growth, then that sewer upgrade was a great candidate, and the state awarded that this last year. So working together with their city manager, it was their second year. The first year they were not successful. This last year they'd asked for some help, and we were able to write that grant a little bit more robustly and have better data, and they got everything they were asking for, which in and of itself is not very common because it's a fixed pot of money and a lot of competitiveness. So circling back then to the site selectors, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge two guests that walked in with me this evening. Council Chair Sandy and my CEO Board Chair Mark were able to make an introduction to Eric and Logan, which of course we love the namesake there, but Eric and Logan represent site selectors out of the Texas area. They represent companies that come to them and others in their trade that may look to relocate or expand. And businesses like theirs, GSLI, their job is to help winnow down the most appropriate places that those businesses might choose to be. And so today we've been educating them about our community. How did you put it this morning and several times, Eric? There was some line that you've got about education.
Well, yeah, we always feel lack of interest in a particular area is lack of education. So the more we can offer education about a particular area, obviously the interest will increase. The more you know about companies that are expanding or relocating, and if they're not just a good company, but they're the right fit for your community, then that's where those relationships can be built and a potential new company come to your area. Most importantly, employing new people.
Great, thank you. And so working with them this year, we've responded to requests for information, our RFIs for cold storage and other ag-related elements that we know our community excels at. We continue to work with them. So that's what hosting site selectors and the familiarization tours, that's what FAM Tours stands for. The next was an ag-report study. At your direction last year, I'm going to breeze through this because I already feel like I'm taking way too long, and I'm grateful that I have not already gotten a shepherd's crook. The ag-report study is through BRAG, but the counties are required to help contribute a 40% match. Our county had requested, in order to lessen how much comes from the general fund, if we could use a portion of this grant funding to help go towards the 40% match Cache County needs to make towards that. So you see that number reflected as 18.5, which was about half of the dollar amount that Cache County needed to contribute for BRAG to be able to proceed with that. That study is still underway. And then the last, which is also important for what we're going to ask for fiscal year 26, is an LGU is the call sign for our airport, the Logan Cache Airport, a matching grant. The CEO board last year recommended or advised, and you approved a matching grant that was intended to be a 1-to-1, meaning that as long as it helped with economic development and not taking care of deferred maintenance, up to 18.5 could be spent at LGU with that goal in mind, but expected that there'd be a 1-to-1 match from another source of money. Could be the airport's general operating fund, it could be a private, sponsorship or whatever that may be. We actually have a project that is a great segue. I'm just going to pass through some of these elements that we've done for traditional economic development under that first column on the left. Some of these brands represent our efforts the last little while, and get straight into the fiscal year 26. I am passing along the CEO board's recommendation that we keep the dollar amount the same for the contract with BRAG, that I'm going to skip over to the right-hand column, airport growth, round 2. The airport has had some maintenance elements to repair some vehicles specific to the airport that were not forecasted and have left them with not sufficient funding for a 1-to-1 match. But going back to a grant a couple of cycles ago, we, the county, had hired a contractor a consultant, excuse me, that gave us some pretty bold recommendations on what to do with LGU to make it more self-sufficient, I'll put it that way. And some of them are very bold, involving, maybe a mix to the makeup of the authority board, definitely aggressive when it came to, hey, if you guys have this much dominance with the university, perhaps negotiating and having some tough conversations with them, asking for them to help financially support that. I think you're all familiar with it. And again, just kind of glossing over the Part 139. One of those elements, too, that they perceived to be low-hanging fruit was the concept of self-serve fuel that could help us gross some revenue per gallon sold. So the airport authority constituted a subgroup, a committee, to evaluate that potential. And that potential was found to be, $100,000 to $200,000 a year that might be able to be made in excess of costs. But it is admittedly a nice round number done by a committee of sub-members of the Airport Authority Board. So in order to independently verify whether or not that's a really warranted activity to proceed forward with, there are a number of consultants, but one has been specifically reached out to because their specialty is in fuels, EFG, and they've given us a quote of $23,200. That would be in excess of what fiscal year 25 would allow. And since the airport is already running just a smidgen in the red, there's no matching funds. So the airport authority, in which case I would turn time over to Keegan or Mark to interrupt me at any moment. They have suggested waiving the one-to-one match for the purpose of being able to proceed forward and to use a remainder of $1,500 from fiscal year 24 that stands in our reserve to match that. That would take us up to 20. And we'd still have a bit of a deficit of $3,500, $3,200. And that's where round two is suggested to come into place as part of fiscal year 26. Council members that are also on the CEO board, have I done justice to that?
Yeah, I think so.
Anything you want to add?
If we want to talk specifically about the refueling when we're ready to vote on that, I don't know if now's the appropriate time, but I did reach out to the FBO, Leading Edge Aviation, and Scott's here, he's the president. He sent me an email, and so I can share their perspective on that because they've been providing the fueling prior to that. So
I think this is the time because we're voting tonight to approve these amounts, so.
So did you have anything else to say, or?
Nope, I was just trying to tee that opportunity up for you,
So,
Councilman.
and we can invite Scott to answer any questions if you deem that appropriate, but just some of the perspective that he shared was that managing another FBO, they saw that most of the pilots and customers preferred the fueling trucks that comes out to the plane rather than self-serve. And the email, the estimate was only about 10 to 15% was from self-service. Mentioned that there'd be some transient purchases from the self-service system. Doesn't expect that to exceed 5%, as most airports have self-service, and the FBO would compete with that. One of the other caveats would be that they wouldn't be able to financially justify building a new FBO terminal if they lose that revenue. So there could be repercussions, but the way I said it in the meeting is it's sort of like if you're selling through a distributor and then telling them we're just going to sell directly to the customer now. So there's maybe a political component to that as well. But keep in mind this is just to fund the feasibility study, and that would bear out some of those details. But right now I want to be clear that there's some napkin math that's been done to see how much the airport might be able to generate from it. It was a recommendation from Dr. Jones in that study, but there is another side to that story. So if we have any questions for Scott, I would request that he have the opportunity to answer them if anyone does have a question.
So this is to study the feasibility of doing self-service fuel and what the economic impacts of that would be. Am I understanding that?
Yeah, it would evaluate the cost of putting. It's been estimated putting something like that in could cost about $300,000. We don't know that for sure. That's just a guess. And then there's I think the napkin math estimated a 9 cents per gallon flow rate, and then estimated the total number of gallons annually. And I think that's where they got that number. So that's where that's at.
That's correct, Madam Chair. It's to remove any potential for the napkin math being wrong, a subset of the airport authority, which may, you know, as the comparison made with Councilman Keegan's comments about the distributor selling direct, removing any inherent bias that there may or may not be there, and just having a third-party entity prove out or the merit or the lack thereof of how much money we could expect to make per year. The reason why that's relevant, according to Dr. Jones, is if it is on the plus side, you likely know that you and Logan City are making a financial contribution every year to subsidize the airport operations. That has been the case for quite some time, to the extent that the airport has been deferring some maintenance, meaning some maintenance that's needed to be done has not been able to be done. You may recall that coinciding with his report, Dr. Jones's report, the FAA came out and said, there are some things we've told you for a few years in a row now that you've not done for your Part 139 that you really need to do. Now, the great news is, with your guidance and you know, proper attention given, Bob and his team have been able to correct a lot of those, and he passed with flying colors the Part 139 inspection and told the airport authority such just within the last month. So that's great. Some things have been caught up. Should this be a net revenue positive, then the great news is you have options. I'm not here to opine on which option you would find most desirable, but you could decrease your general fund contribution. You could maintain your general fund contribution and allow the net increase to then go further in catching up on some of the deferred maintenance. You have a host of conversations you can have about that, but you can see where that might offer some possibility. Notwithstanding the airport authority, and Councilman Keegan, please correct me if I'm wrong since you're on that board, but there is, you know, an acknowledgement that a nice terminal would be a really great, nice asset for pilots that come in, corporate jets that are hangared there. So it's not to be the least bit flippant about, you know, the proceeds could also be used by a third party or FBO, by the airport authority itself, to do something with a hangar. But again, this is for a third party objective, you know, study to be done and said, yay or nay, thumbs up, thumbs down, bring that back to you through the airport authority and determine where to go from there.
I'll also add that the Airport Authority Board has approved some of Dr. Jones' recommendation, namely landing fees have been implemented, as well as requesting funds from USU. They've committed to cover a portion as well. So this would be yet another recommendation to generate revenue for the airport.
Does anyone have any other questions about that portion of it? I have a question about the update of the county's economic assessment strategy. Tell us about that. What happened 7 years ago?
Okay.
Where are we at? Do you have a bid? Is it?
No, we don't have a bid.
Okay.
That is literally just a pocket number. So the county, as you may likely know, especially those of you with the institutional knowledge and have been here that long, did not have an economic development a program or approach prior to the rural county grant existing. The state legislature they'd heard from rural counties that they too wanted to participate in economic development, but felt like GOED, the Governor's Office of Economic Development at the time, was not really paying attention to anybody outside of Ogden to Provo. And for those communities that didn't have a Kirk Jensen, because Kirk Jensen has been here for about 20 years, for those communities that didn't have that, then they really didn't have a mechanism for responding to that outreach that GOED or EDC Utah, the Economic Development Corporation of Utah, would get from companies like GSLI. The state has taken on a certain amount of that procurement of queries from companies that might be looking to expand, and Utah specifically targeting 5 industries at that time. So the state legislature said, listen, not all rural communities are the same. We're going to make this very fluid. And so they set that maximum amount not to exceed $200,000 a year. The county classification, basically anybody that's rural. And beyond making sure that it's for economic development, they really didn't set much more in terms of parameters. Well, coincidentally, and purely coincidental, because it had been started before the legislature passed that, this county I was going to call him Councilman Butters, but Executive Butters and the Chamber of Commerce had executed a study by Lewis Young, Robertson, and Birmingham, one of a few kind of public entity consultants in the state, to say what would it take, what should be Cache County's approach, and if so, what are the industries that are important to us, rather than just riding coattails on the state's identified 5 clusters. And so that Lewis Young, Robertson, and Birmingham assessment and then the development of a strategy came about as a result of that. And it concluded at the same time the state legislature passed that bill, SB 95 as it was known at the time before Rural County Grant. And the chief recommendation was have somebody in a position that helps to direct those efforts, kind of like having an airport manager to help direct the efforts of taking care of an airport. And so you guys created a position, and I feel incredibly fortunate to this day to have been selected in that role. Now, of course, I serve more than just Cache County, but I love this opportunity. But it's been 7 years. It is standard practice to change that to review it, update it every 5 to 10 years. It's a lot like a general plan, and if done properly, an economic development strategy is part of your general plan. But we typically think of general planning as just the community development side. So it was suggested strongly by the CEO board, and I would defer to Chairman Mark if he has anything to add to that.
I think you've summarized it really well, but yeah, just echoing that. It's been 7 years on something like this where we've experienced such dynamic change. I think 7 years is plenty of time, and it's time to, we don't need to wait for 10.
Yeah. I guess the question I have is, what useful information, not useful isn't the right word, because I'm sure it was all useful, but what practical information was gained from the last study that has made a difference? Like if there was 25,000 spent before or whatever it was, have we been able to follow that plan? Has it made a difference to have that plan in place as we've moved forward these last 7 years? How useful was that plan is what I'm kind of asking.
Thank you. Great question. It certainly gave me guidance in that first year, right? When I hit the ground running here, you know my background, and so I had some experience in this realm before in a different locale. Our county is different than the one I came from, and it definitely helped lay groundwork for me that Lewis, Young, Robertson, and Birmingham, a third-party assessment, as well as those stakeholders that contributed to the interviews they did to come up with that strategy, said our industries, I'm just going to note agriculture is huge. Where I came from, very dry, not a lot of wet water. Agriculture wasn't as big of a deal. There was some cattle ranching, there was some hay farming, but it's nowhere near the caliber of what we can do here. No operating mill, let alone Central Mill, Utah Flour Mill, IFA, we just didn't have any kind of capacities like that. We know from several conversations that we want to continue to have ag as an important economic factor in our county. We're good at it, so we really shouldn't abandon it, but we also have room at the table for some of our high-tech elements that we got an opportunity to show our guests here today. Those were part of the identified key industries that we want to focus on. It allowed me to hit the ground running. It allowed me the justification of saying why I would continue to keep those companies that are germane to those industries and even possibly have robust conversations with companies in those industries to make sure that we bolster it. 47G is an industry association for aeronautics and defense. We have a number of very quiet and discreet entities in our midst that for good reason we don't want to be openly promoting, but they do a really excellent job on the national scene. That's been one that has grown probably in importance in 7 years and was not identified strongly, but from the CEO board, this body, the county executive, even a neighboring county that also has a dominant part to play in the national defense scene, aerospace and defense is a big deal. I imagine that would probably prominently show up much stronger in an assessment this next time around.
Okay.
I don't know if I answered your question,
Yeah,
but
I
it helps
just
to focus us.
wanted to see a little bit about the justification of the $25,000. Like if it was that useful, then, we move forward and update it and have a new one. And I'm sure you guys discussed that in the CEO board meeting.
Yeah, it was unanimous support from the board that
Okay.
the timing was good.
And how we actually got to that is there were several ideas suggested, like should we do an incubator to help emerging businesses or startups? Should we do another marketing campaign like we did 10 years ago for Logan on the Edge? Should we do, and we realized we didn't really have the North Star to guide us in that decision making, so we figured we should probably start there before we
Do the plan.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
To the point that Councilman Keegan just brought up, I think this is a little too small for my middle-aged eyes to read from across the room, but thankfully I have a laptop in front of me. These are some other ideas that they bandied around during the discussion, and it was robust, and I'm really pleased to report I was not the reason why it took a long time. It was a really great discussion by all the board members in attendance, but one of those brought up was For example, the bullet point number 2, study of economic impact of league sports and outdoor recreation as a potential for the future. These are future kind of potentials. And then, the very first one, that's what Keegan just alluded to, and that is after the strategic plan, because you wouldn't want to renew a marketing campaign like Living on the Edge without knowing what it is you want to promote first. So, this was one of those ideas they might come forward with next year. Anyway, there you have it. So this slide represents the CEO Board's recommendations for fiscal year 26, and I seek your support if you agree.
I have a question. So if we look at what entity uses our airport the most, are we asking their help, or are they helping the airport enough in landing fees or other things, or how does that go? And then also I'd like your insight, as you're the economic director for different counties. Is there anything going on in the Brigham Airport that is different than what's going on in our airport that we should be looking at, or how do you see that?
I'll answer the latter first because it's the quickest one. We have more of a strategic advantage. That makes me uncomfortable because, like Josh before me, I'm going to present to Box Elder County tomorrow and then Rich next Wednesday. But Rich doesn't have an airport like Councilman Brigham does. Brigham City has sole ownership of that, so it's a little less transparent to me. I'm not as involved in that as I am ours. They also don't have the presence of USU. Utah provides 10% of America's licensed pilots. The entire country, Utah provides 10% of those. Of those, USU is dominantly the one who educates those pilots. And USU, because our airport is so busy, now, we obviously don't have the commercial flights, but we are the second busiest airport by air traffic in the state. More than Provo, more than Ogden, more than St. George, Washington County. Again, not commercially, but air, pattern, we're the second busiest. This was one of those bold recommendations by Dr. Jones. He suggests that we build a parallel, smaller, shorter runway to the west of our current runway and deconflict that airspace and give a left-hand rotation, a left-hand, not program rotation, am I right? Traffic, yeah. Anyway, left turn for those and right turn for the commercial that could be in the corporate jets and your typical, hobbyist folks. That obviously is going to be quite a capital investment. And we have that need for deconfliction if we're going to continue and maintain the prominence of USU. So back to your first question, are they participating? I don't want to be out ahead of my skis. I'm going to look at the council members. I guess I should look probably more at you, Keegan, maybe unfairly, but as a voting member of the Airport Authority, you can attest that it seems like they've heard loud and clear. They know that they contribute some costs with some discussions that have been had in the last year. I'm not at liberty to really know all of those discussions, Councilman Gunnell. I don't know, but it's clear that they know they need to at least cover some costs for the Part 139 part. I think part of it, though, too, they help with our flowage volume of sales of fuel, regardless of how that fuel sales conversation progresses. There's a volume discount, and they're largely our volume, so that's helpful. We have a lot more economic opportunity with our airport. I can tell you that. Not to say that Brigham couldn't, but they just don't seem focused on it. And yet they have I-15 in a way that we don't. But we also have the university and a lot more corporate activity. And we are the center of the micropolitan statistical area. And I will just say that this will probably be cringeworthy, but I think Garden City will become our Deer Valley and Park City in 30 years, just like if you were to tell Moab what they were going to be 30 years ago, what they are today. And this is going to be the closest airport for those kind of folks to fly in and out of. That we have, potential. We can either be on the upside of taking advantage of that or, watch it happen anyway. But Preston Airport is not going to be that airport. They're not going to want to fly into Brigham to take another 45 minutes through the canyon to get through our community to get back up to Bear Lake. So there are some potential opportunities for us, but it won't be free of challenges. How USU plays into that, I kind of have to leave to other members of the Airport Authority to speak to.
I'll just say briefly, their recent contribution is was previously unprecedented. So I think there's still a lot to be worked out with that, but that's a step forward in the direction that it's going. And I think maybe the perspective Sean could offer is the economic development director is, I think your words were courting businesses. If being able to have a private aircraft is an appeal, and being able to facilitate that and make sure that goes smoothly. Is that a factor in the decision-making process and site selection?
It can be sometimes. I hate to put you on the spot, Eric, but do you know from some of your corporations from time to time that that's a deciding factor?
Obviously, it depends on the size. It also has a component of the training, which is also a big benefit to the communities. If they're bringing in workforce to be trained on a regular basis, those people are using hotels, they're using the local restaurants, so it's an additional economic benefit. So having that ability for the CEO to come in, but not only the CEO, but their training is a big factor.
And anecdotally, we have one of the corporate jets of one of our dominant businesses here in town, actually not too far from the airport itself. They travel quite a bit, and Scott could probably speak to the volume of some of our corporate, hangar tenants that fly in and out with some level of frequency, either because they're making international sales calls and showing up to pitch their hardware that they export from our community. There's some upside. So the short answer is yes, but I don't want to overstate how important it is to every corporate, site selector or corporate decision.
Does anyone else have any further questions for Sean tonight before we take a vote on this? Okay, I would entertain a motion. I can't do it myself.
Make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the CEO board.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the recommendations of the CEO board for fiscal year 26, for our fiscal year 26 rural county grant. Any further discussion?
Maybe a statement saying that this is a feasibility study, and I don't think it should be a foregone conclusion that the airport ought to install the pumps. I think that's what we're trying to find out.
Got it. Okay. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
That was good timing. My battery just died. Thank you.
Sean, there's one other thing that I was just curious about, and you may have talked about this in your meeting, and I won't have you belabor it now, but I would like an update on the Agriport at some point, where we're
Okay.
at with the Agriport, and we can do that another time, but just to see where we're at.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, before we move to 6F, Dirk, can we go back to you and to the appointments? I think you have one to make.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and I do apologize for my lateness tonight, just working on some final arrangements for the meeting. Madam Chair and Council, I have to present to you tonight an appointment to the Bear River Board of Health. I got a phone call from Jordan Mathis, and he explained to me that the proposed appointment tonight has been very involved recently, especially in their meetings, and would be more than able to step right into the role. For you tonight, the proposed appointment, I apologize for not including any additional information on the appointment exhibit, would be Sandy Goodlander. I believe you know her, and so I present that name to you. I do want to explain or share that, to our best knowledge, working with Janine, that this appointment would fill the unexpired term of David Zook, which would expire 12/31/2026. If there's a different understanding, we can figure that out, but that's the understanding for now. So I present that appointment to you, Madam Chair and Council.
Move to approve that appointment.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the appointment of Sandy Goodlander to the Bear River Board of Health. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Oh, aye.
The appointee accepts that?
Yes, thank you. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Dirk.
You bet.
Okay, presentation of the budget. Here we go.
You bet. Council, I'm passing to you 2 sheets of paper tonight. Well, I guess you can just pass that down, and each person can take one, and Andrew, you could maybe hold the extras for me or whatever as it gets down to you. This top sheet that you see,
There's 3 copies in.
should be two sheets. One is the one that the top word on that sheet is projected shortfall, and that is the sheet that Matt has been working on to help us understand the budget more clearly. And we're going to work through that sheet, and then I'm going to add to it from the discussion. As you know from in our last week in the county council meeting, one of your council members made a suggestion that we come back, maybe ask the departments to see what we could do to find some additional cuts. And most of the departments responded. We're still working on getting some proposals from some of them, but I just have been really touched by the way that the department heads came forth very willingly with additional cuts. Many of those cuts are things that would not be ongoing permanent cuts, but perhaps cuts to their capital requests. Other cuts are situational. For instance, our clerk suggested he just knows that he has an item in his budget for 2026 that he thought he would need when he filled out his statements of estimated expenditures and revenue, that he's not going to need a certain amount of seasonal help. He's not expecting to. So that's the kind of idea where he just knows the situation has changed since he originally put in his statement. And so that is a cut directly to the general fund. So if you'll walk through with me, and Matt's here ready to go, it looks like with his laptop as well. I just really appreciate the way that Matt and I have been able to work directly together, working on different ideas that we could actually implement in 2026. And then in a few minutes, I'll be able to share some ideas that we could make immediate changes to expenditures as well this year and ongoing. Those have some obviously immediate consequences, but we're not sure exactly how much those would produce, but it would help us, I guess, stop the bleeding, so to say, on expenditures. So the number that we all are at, and the current estimated expenditures is at the top, $68,920,391 in estimated expenditures. And the current estimate for general fund revenues is the $61,277,375 amount. As we go down through this spreadsheet, the estimated use of fund balance helps. The savings from cuts to projected budget would help. The probable need for 2026 mid-year budget openings, Matt has suggested that number, and I agree that we should put a contingency in there that we might expect from your quarterly budget amendment times to add $800,000. So that adds to expenditures. But in a wonderful find this week, Matt and his staff realized that at the very end of 2024, the council approved as part of the budget creating a restricted capital fund, which basically takes general fund as well as municipal services, but this number here is just general fund, and restricting it. And we had not yet included that in the revenues estimates because it's sitting out there separate from general fund. And so even though this is available restricted capital fund balance, I think for the purposes of tonight's discussion, we can assume that that is a relief of pressure. It would be expected that if you wanted to take actual technical budget action, you could change that fund back to general fund revenue, and that would help. Or you could just use that amount for capital. The challenge there, for 2025 capital, the challenge there is if we want to, even this year, restrict the amount that you spend on capital, then, and it would be lower than that, then you would have an amount sitting out there in the capital fund that you wouldn't necessarily automatically benefit our situation for 2026. That brings us to the likely projected shortfall line of $4.966516 million. And what we've discussed together is just presenting a general possible scenario for the tax increase of $3.9 million, but that would assume the use of fund balance of the almost million there, the $985,008. We've talked last week about the general fund balance, And there's an issue I'd like to discuss with the council tonight a little later in my presentation about that. With all of that together, that would require about an 18% property tax increase to the Cache County property tax portion of citizens' entire property tax. That would bring a tax increase cost on an average home of about $63. And then he lists there a couple of items about the beginning 2026 fund balance and estimated ending fund balance. And that's all of this is general fund. And then he shares that table there. What I am presenting to the council, if you move to the second page, is that from the discussions with the departments, and we haven't received all of the submissions, I can commit for sure that we will be able to bring $1 million of additional cuts. And that does include the $400,000 listed at the top there. So on top of this sheet, it would be an additional $600,000. But it's $1 million above what was presented in the statements of estimated expenditure and revenue.
Is that mostly capital requests that they're going to put off, or is it some operating?
It's a mix, and I actually think that we could hit the capital together, me, Matt, any council members that want to participate, and go through those and ask them. The problem with hitting the capital is in most cases, you're just passing it on to the next year because those are expected to be one-time costs. But even in these discussions over the last week, these numbers have changed. We've found additional revenues that we didn't realize we had. We've had discussions amongst several of us about different ways that different departments are approaching their capital. And are they actually kind of flush? And do they need one more of an item or not? And I just really appreciate the way that the departments have stepped up. So just to finish my proposal, one thing I wanted to present to the council as options for actually helping with general fund expenditures is this. Over the past few years, for the most part, most of our discussions that at times have been intense and other times less so, we focused on the budget. And I think that's one part of it. I think the part that we're missing from my experience in other places is actually to really look at ways that we can control or at least monitor carefully expenditures through the year. And that's the sort of thing where Matt came today and talked about the fact that with our finance director being absent, that we haven't really finalized the month-end process like we've wanted to. Well, and it occurred to me that there are different things that we as a council and county can look at on a quarterly basis even to compare how is each department that's affected with general fund, how are they doing on spending that general fund? Things really do change. And it's not always a change that they need more. Sometimes it's a change that they need less. Some of the strategies that I've seen and helped implement have been some of these things, additional budget and expenditures efforts. A focus on current year. Those kinds of focuses can be extended. So for instance, if you did a hiring freeze, I do want to say that with these three strategies, there's a cost-benefit analysis of if we implemented a hiring freeze right now, today, and we would love to work with Taylor and find out, but in all of the other places I've been, the executive or governor can do that. He tells the departments, no more hiring. The problem is we haven't really run scenarios. We don't know how much that would save us. So the cost benefit is, do you cause the stress? Do you cause the fact that you have to create a process by which every vacant position comes to some sort of small committee and we say, do we have to hire this? Or what are the options for the department to hire and actually fill that position? And then eventually, in my previous experience, if that department is able to do without sufficiently that position for a 6-month period, you eliminate the position permanently. The other problem with that strategy, it only comes up when people quit and when positions come open. Contracts freeze. It's a similar thing. You have to consider which contracts have already been approved, have already gone through the system, have already gone through finance. and then look at the ones that haven't been executed yet this year. And then we review very carefully all of the contracts that they're planning for next year, including we've had issues and discussions over the number of carryover POs that seem to go from year to year. And so that's another thing we can look at. Then a travel freeze as well. You can do an immediate freeze on travel, but how much are you going to save? So you have discussions with individual departments that would begin immediately. And then all of these things in the current year and any savings we find in the current year, we could probably estimate by the time that the council's ready to pass their final budget. So our plan, what I'm presenting to you tonight, is an expenditure level that the tentative budget will not be above. So I'm committing to you that it's basically this amount here with an additional $600,000 in cuts that we can realize. And then along, the tentative budget is coming to you no later than your next meeting. Matt and I have talked about finalizing these reductions, these additional reductions that the departments have proposed, and emailing that tentative budget to you as soon as we can roll them in. And then it's officially presented in the meeting as it's asked for in code. A focus on increasing revenues. We've had governments have revenues, and there are ways to increase them. Our efforts over the last few years to change our fees, our fee schedules, I don't think have been a significant source of increasing our revenues. We've had discussions about some of the intergovernmental services that some of our departments provide to other local governments. At what rates are they providing those? We understand that some of them, they're provided at cost or barely above our cost. And we're wondering if we should charge somewhere in between that and market rates for those services. Again, to me, finding opportunities for revenues might be a longer term discussion. That might not be something that we have ideas or estimates between working together for the council to roll into their final budget. So, and then we have discussed shortly getting a legal clarification, basically looking at old emails and efforts from Taylor and his office on the statutory fund balance requirements. In our recent discussions, we all just seem to remember that the maximum was closer to 30 million, and Matt's got it at around 20. I support his interpretation. I say let's just find out what the right interpretation is and make sure that we meet that. But that's the maximum. I think if it's above 21, it's kind of a moot point then, and we don't need to. We won't be in a position that we have to reduce anyway. So that is my presentation tonight on the budget. Basically offering that through the additional efforts of the departments to bring an additional $600,000. It's an additional $1 million over the statements of estimated expenditure and revenue, but an additional $600,000 over what's been presented to you tonight on this worksheet. And so if any of you have any questions or comments, I just really appreciate working with Matt and his staff and with council members that have had questions. And it's a really hard job to do. Matt has gone through an extreme turnover, and in effect, with the transition, it's been tough. But he's doing his best, and so is Brittany and all of the other analysts. And he's done a great job of actually filling his empty positions. So we appreciate all the help he's been able to give. But with our council members' requests last week and us gladly taking that on the departments, even without an official vote or request from the council, I just really appreciate the way the department heads have pulled together. And it was impossible to pull together in a week, basically, to finalize and go through and work with each department head to go over their proposed cuts. So thank you for this opportunity.
Okay, does anyone have questions for Dirk? I have some questions for Matt.
I have a question for Dirk.
Okay.
Yes.
So on your likely projected shortfall of 4,966, if we throw in this additional 600 you're saying can happen, then we're actually looking at 4.3?
Yes. And that, according to my calculations, and we're kind of doing this on the fly, but we could, I think the estimated property tax increase might be closer to 15% instead of 18. If you just do a dollar for dollar, you know. And the tax increase would probably get below 60 instead of above 60 per house.
Or less use of fund balance, because it's still $1 million use
Right.
of fund balance
Right.
with the proposal.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm comfortable with that fund balance amount, and if we wanted to discuss it further, I'm really wanting to do a fund balance amount as best as we can, that without a council vote, feeling and trying to talk to different council members of what they would be comfortable with.
I think knowing the minimum and maximums will help, and also one of the inquiries I had was the last catastrophic event we had and what that ended up costing, so we know what is a responsible amount to keep in the reserves.
Yeah.
Well, I for one don't want to be sitting at the minimum each time,
Yeah.
knowing that there's an event that could happen, and it did happen in the floods when we had to replace bridges and do road repair and everything else, so that was costly.
If I could
I
just-
like your idea of looking at revenue, but at the same time, I wish Brett was still here, because I feel like we're missing on the second homes that are sitting in Cache Valley. These recreation type homes, and what's going on in those areas. How we get them, I don't know, but I think we're missing some things there, so.
To go in hand with that, some of the short-term rental type things that we have in the county as well for licensing and et cetera,
Right.
additional revenue.
Okay, and I just want to, overall, this is really big picture, but you're going to add, let's just say we take that 3,076,000 that was set aside and put it back into the general fund, but the 68 million that we're putting out as our expenditures, that includes all the capital requests. They aren't separated out.
Correct.
There, so that would be, it would just go back in.
Yes,
We would keep them, it's all together.
yes.
Okay,
And I can absolutely commit that, obviously, when we propose and turn in the tentative budget, there will be a summary sheet, but then it'll be easy to see the capital separated from operations. I think that would be helpful.
okay, Matt, if you wouldn't mind, I have unless does someone else have questions for Dirk before I
Oh.
ask Matt?
I just wanted to say, what Matt and I have found in code is that the minimum is like 5% of general fund. We don't want to be anywhere near 3.5 million, right?
No,
No,
So,
okay,
So I do have a question for Dirk, sorry.
okay, no.
Last week, we talked about some items coming up for purchase, yet the old item was still fairly new. So have you talked to the department heads that we need to come up with some kind of standard, or if you want, that can fall back on the council, but there needs to be a discussion of substantiate why you're coming in for a purchase when a piece of equipment is still there that's valid.
Yeah, whether that's mileage, age, hours, whatever the,
I think
Right.
part of that's that 400,000 that was already identified, right? That's what that is.
That
And-
seems small, so.
Well, I think there's more, but that was just that was the beginning.
right. I would really propose that we do get as specific as we can when we approve the budgets, and that we know what they're asking for. In essence, it's approved for that sort of model, but I also support Matt's additional analysis and any finance analysts that are working with them. And then when they go through the purchasing process, some of that additional analysis can be given. I think it's a great idea to look more closely, because your review isn't going to be, and even our review isn't always going to be as specific or exact as we might like it to. We also might discover new things, even between, because we're approving this budget, the council's approving the budget hopefully in October, November of each year, and then some of those purchases may not happen until 6 months later. We may have new information about better equipment. We may have more information about equipment we can get from other governments instead of purchasing brand new. And we've even had, over the last 2 weeks, we've even been talking with Andrea in OPM about the fleet approach. and how her analysis came back saying, when you have to replace, buy, maybe new, maybe not at the state rate, and then drive that sucker until it doesn't make sense to drive it anymore. Instead of the lease thing, and instead of buying every 2 years, right? And not buying the best models that are out there, and also standardizing our vehicles and all of that. So,
One more question for you.
yeah,
How long have you been doing budget here at the county?
3.5 years.
So have you ever delved as deep as you seem to be doing this time in other years? Because I can remember that when I first got on here, we had to look at everything because it didn't seem like it was being paid much attention to. And so I'm hoping that attention, and not only as a councilman, but as a citizen, that attention is, I'm going to use 2 words, trust but verify, that's 3. Trust that they're putting in the right request, but verify that that is absolutely needed. I sat here and reminisced over our Truth and Taxation meeting last year, and there was some concerning discussions from citizens that this impact on them of us raising taxes and then the school district doing it. I feel bad about that, and so that weighs on me heavily, and I'm concerned about that. So I'm hoping that there is a renewed effort that as this budget comes in, and I appreciate Matt, but Matt has a little bit more tentacles deeper than we do in that he meets with each department head and he sees things in more in detail. So I'm glad we have an elected auditor because now he's held to a higher standard of what he discusses with these departments as he reviews that as well. So I hope that's being done deeply because it seems in the past it was just, I'm going to ask and see if I get pushed back on it. We need to say, you don't ask unless it's absolutely needed, because this is money that needs to be watched very carefully.
Yeah, I want to echo that too, and maybe personalize a little bit. I know of 3 large employers right now in our valley that are offering voluntary severance to their employees. My own mom took a voluntary severance at USU earlier this year. My wife's healthcare costs at her company have gone up by over 20%. Mine have gone up over 10%. It's hard to ask citizens who are in those situations to bear the extra cost. So county employees can get raises, or so someone can have a new bulldozer. You know, we need to look really closely at this, and I want to get this on the record. I did request what the historicals look like. They're not here today. I can tell you any CFO of any company in our valley could tell you if they're up or down last year, and probably tell you the last 3 years off the top of their head. The fact that we don't have that means we need to pay better attention. Like, we have failed, and we need to do better. That's all I'll say.
Would you like me to answer the question that you asked?
I would like to say, if you look at our turnover, we have had some volatility that I don't think we can blame our staff for that. The volatility has been a beating on them as well. So I will defend them in that.
Yeah.
That they unfortunately have had a beating themselves.
Yeah,
So
we're all dealing with hard things, so.
But we have to remember that county employees are part of this, of our constituency. And
Yep.
that it's not only does it affect others, but it also affects our employees here at the county.
Go ahead, Dirk.
Sure. Nolan asked if I've delved as carefully in past years, and I absolutely know exactly how far I delved each year. Last year, without having a finance staff dedicated to us, it was a very in-between year. We didn't really know how to act. The code actually states that auditor staff, that the executive shall supervise them. That's tricky when they're not in your office. When it comes to building the tentative budget. How do you do that? Matt and I talked today about, well, that's tricky because they're his staff, right? But, it was hard last year, okay? The previous years though, there would have been requests from the departments that you would never see. Because with direct supervision over those departments, we would talk to them and actually screen what even made it to the statements of estimated expenditure and revenue. And I know that I delved very carefully into those the first 2 years that I was here. Also, it's interesting to me, I have received several comments from department heads that, let's just say that I think we should work on the roles. And I don't mean redefining, I just mean let's set some expectations for how these discussions will go throughout the year. And the most important thing to me is what information, whatever information the council needs to make the hard decisions. Many of those hard decisions should be made before they get to you, and then you'll still have hard decisions to make. But we want to give you all of the information you need. What I haven't had here in the county over the last 3.5 years that I've wanted is a very rigorous maybe or active relationship with individual council members where they actually submit their own individual questions. We farm them and get them. It's like it's a very quick, as best as we can, where if any of the council members ask a question about a budget, we then send out the answer to everybody. So they know when they're asking the question about a budget that the answer is going to go to everybody. And it's anybody that's been a part of this has known that since day one, I came and I offered to help. But if any individual council member simply doesn't trust what's going to come back from the executive, why would they ask? I wouldn't expect any person to ask if those two groups don't trust. And that I'm really excited for that to improve.
I do have 2 points. There's 2 numbers that I think the executive group should be looking at, 68.9 and 61.2. Revenues are under our budget, so we've got to start cutting. So that should be something you're looking at all year long and watching that, because now the task falls on the council to discuss a tax raise to hit that. And so my point is, has there been not only every effort, but just like was mentioned at the last time, cut to the bones, cut to the deeper, has got to happen. Because when we say deficit, we need to be closing that as we go forward, always.
That's a great philosophy that we should all follow. We have had a structural deficit for many years. The $25 million in ARPA saved us and masked that need. And
I think all of us on the council warned of that. So
yes, and we knew it as well.
It's going to make us drunken sailors if we're not careful.
Right. And so if people want to get upset and say you should have been keeping up, well, there really wasn't a need necessarily to raise taxes the last few years when we've had a flush general fund balance. But we did see that going down very quickly, right? And so for me, I think there's a couple of things that we need to think about, that we set the expectations for each other and for the public. One is always the biggest cost for any organization are its people. And we should avoid as much as possible. Are we going to give them a basic raise just to keep up with markets and costs of prices? Or are we going to raise taxes? I don't think that's a fair comparison. We do need to pay them in a reasonable way as the years go on. And that is where the biggest increases in our budget has been. And we can do that analysis and show the whole world as we present the tentative
Council
budget.
has been very much forthright wanting to protect our county employees.
Right, absolutely.
Policy, too,
I'm
isn't
not
it?
making,
Isn't it- I mean,
right,
we
I'm
heard
just
from our
saying.
HR director, that was policy, that we want to maintain market rate.
Yes, absolutely. And so the point that I was getting to, though, is this would be the 3rd year of cuts in their budgets, and we are to the muscle and the bone right now. So, we are happy to go through, like, for instance, what each department has given me, especially that I'm over, right, or I should say the executive is over. They gave us options, and then I went back and talked with them. Said, really though, is this really fat or is this in the middle? And is this really middle, or are you gonna have to let people go? And at least one department said, I can let a part-time person go, but there will be programmatic impacts. We're there in most of our departments. In places like Public Works, we will be able to identify at this level of cut, we're gonna start letting certain levels of seasonals go. But Jake and Matt will be able to identify these are the things that won't happen though, or it'll take longer to get to all of our weeds, or it'll take longer to plow our roads in a storm, which we can never predict. But so we need to have good discussions about how low service levels are we willing to go, because they don't have to be. There's no requirement that, you know, it's subjective how quick we get the roads plowed.
Well, on some areas, because wherever a school bus goes, you've got to have that plowed at a certain time.
Very good point.
Well, and we have a prerogative tonight to come up with a truth in taxation percentage, but that's the need in the next hour. But the need in the next 10 years is what gives us confidence if we're down to the, I mean, I use the word muscle, you use the word moderate.
Yeah.
We're down to that now. What gives us confidence that next year we're going to be in a different situation? And I can't look the public in the eye and say we need to raise taxes 18% every year. I just can't. I don't even think I can do that this year, given the circumstances. So, like, what are we going to do here?
Well, I think a good thing to think about is the fact that the possible scenario for tax increase is here around 4 million or 3.6 with the commitment that I've been able to give tonight. If you're not willing to raise taxes every year as a moderation, as an upkeep, to be able to pass a balanced budget, then you just can't keep cutting services so that they have their normal cost of doing business personnel increases.
Yeah, but if we're looking at nearly double-digit increases every year, like, something's wrong. Like, a business would look at that projection and say, in 3 years, we're done.
I think part of it that we need to think about too is the map that the State Tax Commission put out last year that showed the cost per citizen that each county taxes. And Cache County was by far, like by half, less than any other county in the state, which is not anything necessarily to be proud of. I think we are proud that we are trying to be frugal and conservative in our expenditures, but at some point we are so far behind, and that doesn't change the rate of inflation and the cost of living, and it doesn't change the requirements of the services that we are required to do. Like, we're not coming up with programs to build a fun plaza or have a fun festival, or, you know, those are not the kind of things we as a county do. We, you know, are doing the business of the county. We run the elections, we assess the properties, we collect taxes, we, you know, we have the jail, the things that we are required by law to provide. And those costs are not always subjective, you know, and so I think that finding that balance, we are behind, and hopefully we can get more caught up and be able to be on a level par so that we can, so it's not always so hard. But I feel like if we keep that in mind, that it is like a business. There are things we are statutorily required to do, and then, as Derek has said, there are things that we're not statutorily required to do. And so those are the things we have to keep in mind as we look at these budgets.
Well, and add to that, we get unfunded mandates from
From
our
the state.
legislature. And, I mean,
Yeah.
we
That's-
have 50 cents, nearly 47 cents of every dollar is going to public safety. So we don't have a ton of wiggle room,
For
right?
example, staffing schools with an officer.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have,
Yeah, I looked at that.
we're given a lot to do. And so, yeah, sometimes that comes with increases each year.
I mean, to Sandy's point, to restate kind of what you're saying is, we might need to play catch up, but does that mean 18% this year and 3% every year from henceforth?
Well,
or what,
ideally,
you know
it
what I
would be
mean?
nice to maintain our rate, and then growth would be able to sustain some of that, right?
But we're not there yet.
And
We're
we're not
not to
there
that
yet.
level yet.
I understand.
Good points, good discussions.
My last comment I was going to make is that one thing that has definitely been missing from the last few years that I think would help us all and our citizens is some basic tables that show personnel for each department. And then when you get the tentative budget from us, and even if we can get it in the statements that they're required by statute to get to us before you get the tentative, is to show if they're proposing to add any positions. And because of the split, some departments are 100% general fund, some are split by different funds. And we need to know the general fund impact of every single position that's being proposed. And that helps us weigh whether it's worth it or not, so to say.
It helps the public decide too.
Yeah.
So then they put it into context. We cut this, that means you wait 2 more weeks for a permit or whatever the consequences are.
There are some pretty basic ways to look at budgets that we really haven't been presenting that I think we should kind of work as a group to figure out what do we want to see every year. And then if we see that every year, it gives us a better way to judge the differences from year to year.
Okay, thank you, Dirk.
Thank you.
Okay, Matt, I have a fundamental question about the revenues. And we've talked about this a little bit, but if you look at the sheet that we were given last week that shows our revenues, it is the 32,000 amount. Okay, the 2025 budget says 6,600,000 is what we projected, and I realize that our actual numbers that are coming in, now that we have 1 full quarter, it's probably going to be less than that. So you took that down for next year, but have we taken into account that this is only 3/4 of a year's tax, and next year that amount will have another quarter added to it? So it should be more than the $6 million. Is that other quarter accounted for anywhere in this revenue projection?
What we did is we took the short answer is we accounted for full year estimated revenue, and that's 6.6.
I think that 6.6 is going to be the full year.
Now, yesterday we got new information.
Okay.
Actually, it was yesterday. We got new information, and with more information this morning that came in, we got another month's data. So we went from 2 months to 3 months. That third month of sales tax was $800,000. That's above the other 2 months. That we have a much better data set. I think there might be another $1 million there based on that data that we got this morning. But candidly, it's a small staff, and we've had a blizzard of requests this week. We just haven't had a chance. I apologize to Councilman Garrity that we weren't able to get the information he requested, but the staff's really working hard at this.
No, I just wanted to make sure that that had been accounted, that this is going to be four quarters of that sales tax.
So to your question, we're probably $1 million low.
Okay.
On that number.
I was hoping that there would be more than that. And I know originally last year.
The number we were given was 9.
Well, that was
for
a
an entire
projection
year.
from Wes last year, and I don't believe that. I believe that was very robust of a projection. And I think now that we have that first full quarter, that's going to give us a better idea of what that might be. And even then, the quarter that involves Christmas could be, we'll know more.
Matt, what did you say that the lag is? Is it 3 months okay.
Yeah, so we won't know.
Collecting sales tax?
So that's one that we could possibly have more revenue. Which would make me happy.
Sales tax revenue is obviously difficult to project.
Yeah.
One variable, of course, in 2026 is, as Councilman Garrity noted, I think if I can paraphrase, I think the economy is softening.
Yes.
You implied that.
Yeah, and even, we've seen some softening of home values, which will change the property tax revenue. No, it won't.
No, it won't.
I'll just change the rate. Sorry,
Change the rate.
I'm learning. Sorry.
Matt, and this is kind of unfair because I asked this of you yesterday. Did we get any more clarification on if the road maintenance that is accounted for in our general fund is able to be transferred to the
Municipal service.
municipal services, the 200?
I have not had a chance to
Okay.
get
And I
further
just-
data
yeah,
on that.
I know that, again,
And I know we wanted to,
bombarded,
yeah.
so.
You just keep bringing stuff up and throwing it at you, sorry.
One thing that was alluded to earlier tonight that I do have a little more data on, we talked about the revenues versus expenses on some services that the county offers to our constituent members, the cities, on chip and seal. I know there's been some thinking that we're closer to a break even on those. But our earlier numbers, our early numbers that we ran this afternoon suggest that in recent years, we've actually made probably $300,000 in profit. The caveat I would throw in there is we apparently put our snow removal revenue into that account. And so that $300,000 includes some snow removal. We're running some new numbers to pull that snow removal out so we can give you hard data.
300,000 sounds like a lot of revenue for chip and seal, but if you look at the equipment that's involved in chip and seal,
Yeah.
I don't know if we even cover the tires, if the
Right.
tires
Yeah.
went out of that,
Is
so,
that-
And that
One
includes-
capital request from that could be
yes, so
very significant.
when you hear, wait, we made a revenue, but we need to make some that covers that equipment so that it can stay in use or be replaced as we go down the road, because we're using it more to put chip and seal at other places.
And you're right, they're very expensive.
How much do we want to get into a discussion about revenue now? 'Cause, I have ideas for that too, but I just think that's probably beyond the scope of this. I'm sure there's property we can sell, I'm sure there's prices we can raise for services and permits and all that stuff, but
I think that's a point after our budget, so that we're
yeah,
thinking next year.
it's a discussion I'm very much interested in.
I agree.
So I think there's, yeah,
Maybe not in the next 15 minutes, I guess, is what I'm saying.
I think that for tonight, so that we can get numbers to our treasurer and he can do all the things that he needs to do with the State Tax Commission, on our next part of the agenda is we're going to need to set an amount. And I think that we can keep in mind that this is fluid, that once we set it, we can always go backwards. We can't go higher. And so if we set an amount tonight that seems high, we can work on lowering that. It doesn't have to be that we stick to it. Obviously, we have several months now then not several months, we have a few weeks to refine that and get it down to the nut. But I don't want to get into a situation where we set a low rate and then we're scrambling and we can't do the things that we need to do.
But should we set one that stretches us a little bit? So we maybe make some of the hard decisions that need to be made so we can get there? 'Cause I feel like the balloon will get as large as the air that it will hold.
I feel like
That's a good analogy. That's a really good analogy. right
but you know what, I think last year we did a really good job. But we started at 20 and got down to 12. I think if we started, my recommendation would be to start at 18. And we know that that's going to cover if nothing else changed, that would cover us. But I feel like we've talked about several ways to get it lower than that. But if we set that rate and send out that notice, at least it gives us the time then to work within that. And again, it has to be a vote of all of us, but that's the way I am feeling about it tonight, is there's still way too much ambiguity that we need to refine. And I don't want to, just like that capital fund that we found this last week, there's just no telling what we might, until we get it all completely tied down.
It's been a roller coaster. I mean,
Yep.
thank you for getting it down from 36% to 18. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. That's significant. So thanks for all your work, and publicly, apology accepted. I understand you're trying to do a lot.
I do have one question here. It says on this sheet, or that you handed to us, it says expenditures from the budget worksheet is $68,923,91. Right? Yeah.
That's this one right
That's
here.
right
And
here.
then I look over here as total revenue is that same amount.
Well, that's including.
That's to balance
To
it.
balance it,
Because
you
you
have
have
to put in money from the
That's a,
general fund.
Show them where it shows the
I
$7
know, but
million
it just
transfer.
doesn't make,
It's right here.
it's
Look.
just so arbitrary, I know. That's what I'm saying, that's that appropriated fund balance that comes in there. But it's just, it doesn't tell me what makes it all up except for a bunch of general things, and I want more detail.
And that's what the next few weeks, I think, are gonna.
Yeah,
But it's
We
hard,
have-
it's
what
hard
you're
to, it's hard to do an arbitrary, cap that you're gonna say, hey, okay, let's just shoot for this, and then we do all the work. I know it's gonna be lower than that, it's gotta be.
Yeah.
But, I was very interesting, Dirk, you mentioned that we're kind of late in budgeting. You talked about how if we know that we're in a shortfall, well, leadership tells you if you know that you're in a shortfall, then you start cutting way earlier. If you know that we're gonna actually be clear back in February, then leadership would say, let's send it out, let's start making cuts then. But you're looking at all of Cassell's expenditures, and there's no cuts. People haven't been holding back.
who was our leader in your mind then of the county? That you're talking about leadership?
Well, you mentioned about going to these departments and getting information, boy, they should be meeting right with them immediately. But hey, we got some tight things coming on. Everyone start tightening up right now.
Yep.
So-
Which is why tonight, I've suggested, I want to talk to each council member and see how they feel about it, immediate hiring freeze. That's tightening up. Immediate contract freeze.
But, so Dirk, I feel
Because
like.
that's when I'm
No,
able to.
but also, so what happens if we have a hiring freeze?
Mm-hmm.
So now we have an office that is waiting to hire, they have 4 people, right? And they're waiting to hire somebody that has a significant role. Well, that person's duties now come onto these 4 people. They're like, I'm not getting paid anymore to do this person's duties, and I'm really talented. I'm gonna go elsewhere.
Yes.
So now we are down another person, and now we have 3 people doing the duties that 5 people did. And this person was really talented, so they actually did a lot more work.
Yep.
So now we're gonna lose more talent. There's some unintended consequences with hiring freezes that I think could have impact us adversely, right?
Which is exactly why I mentioned, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily worth
Like it could,
the cost.
yes.
It could be costing us more money
It could be
in the long
costing us
run.
more money in the long run,
does.
and not to mention maybe some of our finest talent that we would want to retain, right?
Yes.
And you did allude to that we should understand the consequences and the outcomes.
I know that you're saying it as a potential solution, not that you're saying it is the solution,
Right.
but that's what I'm saying. I think that might not in and of itself
Right.
be the right solution.
Right. And keep in mind as well, whatever final budget is approved, the department heads by state code are responsible to manage that. And it's expected that changes occur and that they are the ones by code that are responsible to manage that. And I think we should come up with some additional policies if the council is uncomfortable with that. But governments have the opportunity in tough times to say, like, things could really tank quickly. And then we have to set some of these types of policies. And all I'm saying is, these are some of the types of strategies we can use as a county to review the expenditures and hopefully actually capture some general fund savings this year. I'm not super confident it's going to be a lot. When people hear there's going to be a hiring freeze, they actually might not go anywhere. Those who leave tend to slow down and when there's rumors of the economy softening, people stop moving around so much because they are worried about opportunities. So, yeah, we are doing our best to manage. And honestly, after 3 years of cuts, the pattern of having unless you're adding, whatever you're clearly adding, yes, we need to discuss and very carefully analyze. But after 3 years of cuts, the pattern of we cut it all the way down, and then the council cuts more, and if you think you're gonna provide the same level of services after that, that's not a sustainable pattern. So we have some very hard decisions to make, I would say, if we are all serious about kind of what Keegan possibly mentioned, that when we have a structural deficit, do we really need to have a structural deficit every year? If we have increased costs enough, like CPI, and if we need to give a COLA, then yeah, it's, that right there is an increased cost. And then also the increased cost of CPI on the only thing, the things we buy as a county that we have to do our job with.
Well, and I think there's some things that you can't put a monetary amount on.
Yeah.
And that, for one thing, is morale, morale of your employees.
Yeah.
And when you have bad morale of employees, the service goes down, everything just is bad. And we've got to take that into some consideration too.
Absolutely. And we, in the tentative budget that you get, it will be down to the line item. And it'll take some work, but I know Matt and Brittany and their analysts will be able to get it into the specific reports that show line item detail. When I was talking to Matt before and I said, hey, could I get the line item detail for the latest? Well, when we lost our finance director, Matt and Brittany we went back to the system we used to use, and they hit print on Cassell, and yeah, here's your line item detail. But it was not by department. It was not, oh man, it would have taken literally hours to actually organize and get it into what we're used to seeing as far as line item detail looks like. But we will have that for you as soon as we can finalize, the executive's proposed reductions and then get it in.
Our finance and budget's part of your department meetings.
Generally, yeah. Do you mean when I meet with the departments?
I would think that you.
Or department head meetings.
Yeah, your department head meetings, that should be on that agenda, that you look at these, or
We talk constantly about their expenditures and budgets, yes. And honestly, that is the main subject of basically our weekly meetings with department heads, which are, hey, we have this change in the situation, and we're gonna need more or less, or we need direction on where to put our limited resources. The council won't hear about a lot of those discussions, because it's really just kind of on the executive side. More serious things, of course, we'd come to the liaisons or to the leadership and have discussions with them about that.
That's part of the reason I was interested in the historicals, is because what's the budget and then what's the actual expenditures? For all I know, they may be coming under budget year after year and deserve credit and recognition for doing that. And when we set the budget, we can know, historically, there's a precedent for it falling 10% under the budget, or they're constantly going over, they're not being reined in, so this budget is probably going to be amended by an extra, that gives me some context by which I can make a decision.
Yeah.
Which sounds like it's forthcoming, but I think that kind of information is really helpful.
Yeah.
And one thing, Dirk, one of the other efforts that you proposed is the contracts freeze. I think obviously departments can't get their work done if they can't do the things that they need to contract to do. However, can we refine the process? Are we getting bids? Is everyone following the county procedure and policy of always getting bids, or do we have just approved contractors, so that's who we always get from, and we've kind of gotten a little bit lazy? Can we refine that and tighten it rather than a freeze? Can we just make sure that we are all following county policy about getting bids?
Yes, and I think, I'm not gonna call it a challenge, but part of the intricacy of finance not being under us, and yet the executive branch is clearly in code, responsible for compliance with all of our laws. I'd say that's part of it, but the auditor's office will have the staff to specifically look at those processes. And or do reports, and you review it regularly.
The other thing is with those contracts, do we even have a complete record of the contracts? And that, I know we don't, because we have a problem there. And we need to be able to look at those contracts and do as Sandy is saying, look at them completely and then, you know, make sure that we're in compliance with who we're dealing with.
And I don't mean to make this discussion continue to go because these, you know, it's late already. But to me, that's a part of a regular review we could do, or we review a certain number or a certain department of programs contracts. I know I was concerned about that library contract simply because it was completely out of date. And that one ended up costing us more money. I'm hoping we can find contracts where we can constrict the amount or even the activities. There may be things that we've had the extended contracts on that just keep going, and that's unacceptable.
Okay, does anyone, yeah.
You see my face?
Yeah.
Sorry.
We
I'm
can
gonna
address
correct
the
one
library,
thing.
but let's just move on.
Just one correction.
Yeah.
Yes, the amount that we will be having to budget for this year will go up. But if we took the same contract that didn't exist and we applied the same logic, it would have cost us triple. So in other words, we saved a bunch of money to do the same thing. Then we can move forward next year and figure out what we do in the future with the library. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. I would say the most important thing is that we're making it right. We're
That's-
checking, and when
we
things
found we
aren't
needed to
right and
update a
out of
contract, we did.
compliance, we need to make sure that they are right.
Yes.
Whether it ends up being less of a good deal for us now than it has been in several years, or if it ends up being a better deal. So,
If I could just add one thing.
Please.
You know, these discussions of better compliance, digging into the numbers more, increasing our reviews of contracts, all those things require staff, they require time that have to be paid for. And all these things that we're talking about to try and save money on the front end, anytime you know, everything has a cost, there's always a trade-off, there's no perfect solution. So if you're going to reduce front-end costs, you need to expect that there are back-end costs to that. And if you pay up front, sometimes it seems expensive in the short term, but in the long term, you get a better product. And the product that we serve and that we sell to the people is government, it's policing, it's justice, it's garbage collection even, and all of these things take money, and that's the product we offer. And if we don't put in the best inputs, we're not going to get good outputs. And so just as you make your deliberations, just keep in mind that there is no perfect solution. And to keep your expectations realistic. We're not going to pay the same for services, products as we did 5 years ago, 10 years ago. That's never going to be the same. We're in Alice in Wonderland. You run as fast as you can just to stay where you are. With inflation, if you raise taxes 4% every year, every single year, you'll have an increase and you'll stay the exact same relative to inflation. And so just keep your expectations realistic of what is actually achievable.
Yeah, I think ideologically, we're saying we want to leverage our resources in the best way we can.
And find
That
that
doesn't
balance.
necessarily mean that increasing resources increases productivity.
Yeah. I think there's the balance of, like, even with putting off capital expenditures, are we going to pay more in the long run that it's really going to hurt even worse? Where do you find that balance of what resources do we put in to be able to analyze those costs and be able to, you know, where is the sweet point? And I think that's where we as a council, that's our biggest job. And it's going to be, the more information we have, the better we will be able to make those decisions. So, Matt, do you have something that you would like to add to our conversation? Or does anyone have any other questions for Dirk or Matt tonight before we move on to the next part of our agenda?
Just a thank you from me to your department for all you've done.
Yeah.
From all of us.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Dirk.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And to all county employees, so
Yes.
thank you.
It's a tough deal. Okay. All right, so the next thing on our agenda is to come up with that number that we're going to be able to give to our treasurer because he needs to get that done before we meet again in September. And I've said what, I've kind of given my opinion. I don't know if anybody wants to have more discussion about that, and or if somebody wants to make a motion, we kind of need to work through that, really get that done tonight.
Well, we all sat here and agreed we needed to do a COLA and make sure our employees were paid. So that in and of itself means we got to raise taxes, just considering what we've done for our employees. So, and back to what Keegan says, if we're always increasing, but if inflation is here, we're always going to have to be some nominal step to keep up to what costs do to us. I believe we're at the point that we have to take a big fight and hope for the best, and each of us commit that we're working on finding more revenues, cutting costs. When we were talking about personnel, everything, I have always advocated we want to pay our people what they're worth and they'll stay. My part is we look for efficiencies. Do we buy the vehicles that get the best gas mileage? Are we buying the vehicle that can do the job without the fluff? Those are things where I think we start looking at, but if we just cover COLA in that, we're talking a pretty high number. So to bring ourselves so that we're not sitting here digging into our general fund, which puts us all in a nightmare if something happens. And yes, we know that there is indication of an economy slowdown or whatever else, but thank goodness you guys found 3 million something that's sitting there, so that helps, but
And I think,
I'm sitting here somewhere between 15 and 18, and that becomes the number that Dirk threw out if we met that. So, but if we say 15, have we cut ourselves short? So I'm open to discussion on that.
and I think we have to keep in mind too, some of the information we got from our HR director, that our employees are paid far below, many of them below the market rate,
Right.
not even in the middle. And so that's not even just a COLA, that's just making the departments whole. And so that's another chunk. But also then, once you get to that market rate, then you can just keep up with inflation. You're not so far behind. And so,
Don't have to play
again,
catch up.
yeah, we can't just always do that, be always playing catch up and feel like we're just trying to cut everything. We've got to get to a point where we're on a level where we can function and do the work of the county. Anyway, I would accept a motion, or if someone wants to keep discussing. I can't make the motion, but obviously, there's a lot more to discuss and things to do as we move forward, but we have to give our treasurer a number.
With that, Andrew, do you have a comment? I think Andrew has a comment.
Yes.
I just want to, I didn't come up with these numbers and I can't take credit for them, but I do want you guys to look at the sheet again and just see what the cost would be, because 15%, 18% does sound scary. I'm not trying to downplay that by any means, but you're just looking at the dollar amount itself based off of the value of the property, the taxable value of the property, I believe.
Oh, that's residence, that's market value.
Okay, market value.
That's market value.
I invite you to consider that and keep that in mind, and I also would suggest that you guys don't pigeonhole yourself into setting a rate that, if something did happen, might be too low. That is all.
And I think a big part of this is going to be educating the public too. I think we need to do a better job of, because like Andrew was saying, and it's right in front of us, an 18% tax increase on a median valued home in our valley, which is $536,000, is about $65 a year, which is, somebody do the math, how many?
$5.50.
$5 a month.
Yeah.
It's $5 a month, so 18% sounds huge, but $5 a month is a completely different perspective, and we need to be able to convey that to the public, that we're doing the best we can, but it's a big lift for the things we need to do.
But add that to the $280.
That the school district is doing.
Add that to some of the cities
Yeah.
that are net.
Yeah.
some of
I
these-
know.
You could see.
Yeah, and their healthcare costs, and their groceries, and everything else.
I
You
know.
know, it's gonna be, it's a
For
tough
people
one,
on a
but.
fixed income, and people that are
I
hurting.
think the number that we're looking at, though, I am not comfortable at all with any, with all this new information and we're just getting bare bones things that are handed to us. I'm having a hard time just even sitting there going, okay, well, we can just throw a high number out there, and yeah, we can make it work, and we can start whittling away from there. But, I just wish that number meant more. And I'm having a hard time, even at 18, how much that really means. Yeah, you can sit there, oh, it's 62. No, I'm saying, what does it really mean in increases? Because to me, I'm still not comfortable with all the information that's being handed to me. So, and then we're still waiting for the tentative, and maybe we just move on without it and get going, and we just do our, what we need to do here at the council and move on, so.
The number we pick is what sticks in the public's mind. That if you surveyed 80% of the public, they'd say the tax increase last year was 20%, because that's what the headline read, that's what everyone remembers. I think very few people remember that it actually went down to 13, so.
12.
12.
Which
yeah.
was about
See,
$3,
I don't even know.
was it like $3
I
a
wasn't on the
month?
council last year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point, right? 20 is the number I remember. And so whatever number we vote on tonight is the number that gets published and what everyone remembers. So, I mean, I'd love to not see a number higher than 10. I don't think I'm gonna get anyone to go along with that, so
Well,
what's,
you
I'll
can
set
do
the-
it,
I'll-
Keegan, it's fine. It's what cuts do you wanna make and how much do you wanna use of our savings? Like, I know that you're, what you're saying, but also it's like, that has to come with something, right? We have a balanced budget. Where does it come from?
Yeah.
What cuts do you wanna make and how much do you wanna use of our fund balance? Because using fund balance anymore to me is irresponsible. I'm taking money from our future, right?
Well, I don't even know what a catastrophic event costs, so that's the frustrating part about tonight, is I don't even have the information requisite to make a decision.
So then we put it off
we're just
and we
playing
pay,
Monopoly right
that's
now?
fine, then we put it off and we pay $30,000 to mail out
It's
our own
50,
mailer.
it's 50.
$50,000 to put out our own mailer. Like, I mean, we're doing this to save money. We don't have to make a decision tonight. We're trying to save money.
Trying to save
If
$50,000.
if everyone's saying that they don't have enough money to make a decision, then maybe we don't have enough information to make a decision.
Well, along the lines of, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what Taylor says matches what I'm thinking here, and that's, we can cut to the bone, or we can shoot ourselves in the foot. The outcome's the same, we can't walk very well. And we need to be careful. So, yeah, 10 is what I'd want to say we do, but I don't know that we can go that low. But 18 is a high number. It's what'll stick in everybody's head. It's a risk we take. But I think that's part of what we're here to do. And the reality is, if we settle at something less, then it's up to us to make sure that's what the public understands, the work we did, and the adjustments that were made by the departments. I mean, for us, it's a conversation tonight and a few more meetings. The people affected, which is also us, because as the taxpayers, but also on the flip side as employees, it's all year. It's a bigger impact of what we end up doing. So, you know, I can get behind 15, but I want 10, I want 5. We're not there.
Yeah.
I mean, Dirk said with
It's
high
not there.
confidence, he can get us to 15 with the $1 million that so do we believe him? I mean,
I think I would be comfortable, we should have discussions because we could use a little more of the fund balance too. Another $1 million of the fund balance might be acceptable, and that drops us down.
If I recall, when we had the floods and the bridge went out that serviced Mendon City residents, that flippin' bridge was costly.
Yeah.
I mean, one bridge kills our general fund. And so,
What
just
year was
like,
that?
huh?
What year was that?
Gosh, it was when I was on planning and
We get FEMA assistance.
And then you add inflation, I mean, everything after ARPA is like 3 times the cost, right?
FEMA did pitch in $8 million.
Pardon?
FEMA did pitch in $8 million.
Yeah, see, that's
It was a $10
context.
million
We need to know to
cost.
make
Is
decisions.
FEMA getting funded the way it used to be funded?
No, but I mean, again, we're just like, I don't know.
All right, I'm
Just
gonna make a motion.
Yeah.
Thank you, Barbara.
I say that we give the report that we do a possible increase of 18% with the knowledge that after we get all of our information, it can go lower, just like we did last year. And that's my motion.
I will hesitantly second that.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second that we set our tentative rate at 18% to give to the treasurer. Is there any further discussion?
I move to amend that motion and change the words may to shall.
Okay.
Go lower. So we work
It's-
harder.
Yes.
I'll accept that.
Listen to the legislature.
I know.
It has to be exact verbiage that is sent with our tax notice.
And no one has to second it, but that's how I feel.
All right, I'm ready to take a vote. It's been moved and seconded that we set that rate at 18% tonight. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, thank you. It's a hard deal, and we'll get through it. Okay. Whew,
Madam Chair,
yes,
I have to ask to be excused. I'm sorry, I've got a meeting at 7:30.
please. Okay. Okay, 7A, we need to schedule a public hearing for September 16th. Is someone willing to make that motion?
Move to set a public hearing for September 16th at 5:15, ordinance 2025-26, Lauer Foods South Road Extension Rezone.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we set a public hearing for September 16th for the Lauer Foods South Road Extension Rezone. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that one passes. Okay, the ordinance 2025-27, the Special Events Amendment to Cache County Code. Andrew.
Good evening, council. This ordinance comes from the Civil Division of our county attorney's office. This amendment would be making changes to county code in regards to special event permitting. If I recall correctly, off the top of my head, let me get my notes here. So this proposal would first and foremost change the definition of what an assembly is for the purpose of permits. It would just change the definition such that later on in the code, there's another change that says that instead of having 100 people at an event at any given moment, it's 100 people is the limit throughout the entire time of an event, whether people come or go. So that creates kind of a little bit more of a strict, how do I say it, a bit more of a strict compliance space. So there's that, and the other substantive part of this change would be that, so right now in code it says that an application for a permit has to occur between 6 months and 45 days. The change proposed would be eliminating the 6-month period, 6-month requirement altogether, because event planners often schedule or apply for these types of things regularly 6 months in, more than 6 months in advance. So this would be opening up the window such that there could be more time to work on these permits and get them in. So do you guys have any questions?
So we're taking in not a 6 months, but they could put it in at 8 months or whatever else.
Yeah, exactly.
For a year.
Right now it says it has to be between 6 and 45 days. Sorry, 6.
Number, oh, sorry, go.
What, Ben, is there a limit? I mean, because I'd like to have the sheriff's input on this, because sometimes you're impacted by some of these special permits if there's a race or anything else. Is that true or not?
On the event permits?
Yes.
Yeah, we anticipate that in the revenue before the budget starts. So we anticipate that like in our overtime rates, because that's what those are paid at. And I think it's about 50,000 a year is what we anticipate on the overtime costs. But that fluctuates because we don't always get the same amount of events. Sometimes it's much lower, and sometimes it's higher. It depends on the number of events that come through.
So when an event comes like that, how much minimum time do you need to focus on what you need personnel-wise, or is that such a question? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, we see it first. So, like if an unpermitted event comes through,
Or what we're talking about is a permit and the time frame, because we said 6 months to 45 days, right? But we're
That's right,
taking the
correct.
6 months out.
Just 6 months would be,
we don't get that much either. We usually get a month-ish. Some of them we know are coming, we can plan those well in advance, but some of them we don't get that early.
You're asking
The
what
events
lead
go
time
through
you
several
need?
phases. It's not just us, fire looks at it, road looks at it, ambulance looks at it. We get a look at it, so it does make the rounds, and everybody puts their costs to the event.
Does that take a month to do, to get all those reviews in, or is it a couple weeks? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I need to know the minimum time is what I'd like to know.
I think we usually see them probably within a month of when the event happens. Most of the events, to be upfront with everybody, is most of the events we know are coming. We might not know the exact date they're going to happen, but we know that they're coming, and we've already probably pre-planned most of those that are coming through.
Okay.
I think there's one thing to look at maybe, and I just read an email from Jared, so, with an MOU that may or may not be coming at the event center, that could change. County property stuff, that could change, I don't know the details of all that.
Is that with Logan City?
Yeah. That could change a little bit, not much, but I think that's something certainly to consider.
Okay, further questions?
I would just like to note that this is an initial consideration, and if you guys did want to pass this tonight, it would require a suspension of the rules. Other than that, I believe that concludes the information I have.
Okay. Does someone want to make a motion, or do we want to continue this and think about it, or look into it more?
Has our legal looked this over, dead with the right? We're good?
Yes, and I would note that this sort of proactive searching in the code is something that takes personnel, and if without personnel, this sort of proactive searching in the code and improvements.
You got your mark in there.
You got your 18%, chill.
That was good. I'm sorry, I stepped out. Did we say O&P has?
This came from the county attorney's office.
Okay, excuse me, sorry.
Okay,
I move to suspend the rules and to pass ordinance 2025-27. Special events amendments to Cache County Code.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded that we approve ordinance 2025-27. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah,
Yes,
page 2.
okay.
Under 8440 and 040. Down there it says the application form must reflect the requirements of this code. What is reflex?
That is an orthographical error.
Oh, good, okay. I just thought it was kind of.
Which I think we did pass a policy earlier this year to allow for those kind of corrections without council
Yeah.
approval.
We did.
That's
Okay.
minor, but I'm just sitting there, I was thinking,
Good
we
catch.
don't want everything to reflex.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or reflex.
Also, I'm really glad
This
we're
is
getting more
minor changes.
revenue with
If you say it
expediting
fast
it.
enough, it sounds like the real reflex.
All right, those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, 9A, other business, the Utah Public Lands Council. Who's doing that? Dave? Dave, you're gonna talk to us about that?
In the past, this, we have supported, this is a repeat. We have sent this before. Is it part of, to support all of our counties within the state, like us, that have public lands. We have organization there through the Utah Public Lands Council that oversees all that. and to support especially a lot of the, even the southern and rural counties that have so many and so much a high percentage of their counties in public lands, to support the basically, I won't say fighting, but the litigation and everything that we can. And Reg Johnson, you know, that works with this, I am very much in favor of, because we do have a lot of Forest Service within our county here, to maintain membership in the Public Lands Council and pay that dues.
$1,000. It's already in our 25 budget,
It
correct?
is.
So this would be for 26? This would, and it would continue in 26, which it already is in there. I
And-
saw that it was there.
Right,
So
and
this would
so,
just approve that.
but this is actually probably, it's more like, hey, it's in there, so we just gotta get it sent
Send a
through.
check.
But as we look to the 26th, I think we need to, let's plan for that too again, if we can.
I thought they were very proactive in informing on a lot of issues, especially this year.
Yep. There's been a lot going on.
So I would say if we can support that, and so let's make sure we get it in the 26th budget, but this one here is so that we can get this paid, and it should already be in there.
It is in our budget, so I don't.
To go ahead and pay.
We don't need to vote on it,
No.
because it's there. Okay, we'll just make sure we get it paid, however that needs to happen. Okay, upcoming election of the interim county executive, that'll be on September 11th. We are all ex officio delegates. I don't know, I know some of us can be there and some can't, but let's all be proactive at researching
Ridgeline
our.
High School, is that where it's at? Ridgeline?
Yeah.
Yes, at 5:30 is, I always forget what it's called. Credentialing. 6:30, it will start, and then after the election, there is actually a county central committee meeting. They're gonna combine it to save money, so there'll be a meeting after the election,
Oh, that very night?
that very night.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're required to have one in the fall anyway, and so this, by combining these two, then they don't have to plan a second.
We won't come in on a special session to do that, we'll just do that night? Okay,
Yep.
that makes sense, thank you.
Yep. Does anybody have any questions about that or want to give any more information? Okay, Wellsville City Founder's Day Parade. Who's coming? We're entry number 13. The parade starts at 10 o'clock in the morning. Lineup's probably 9:30. But I need to know, like, is there enough people coming to make it worth taking the truck and all the candy? Because me and Catherine have done a couple parades by ourselves.
I won't be able to go. I thought originally I'd be able to go, but I won't be able to.
I can't go.
I'll be there,
Okay, we got Nolan.
It's literally your backyard.
literally.
Literally. So we got Nolan, me, and Catherine. No, you can't be there, so there's Nolan and me,
I would like to.
and Dave
Yeah.
Erickson. Okay. All right.
We need to get a broadcast thing to throw the
Yes.
candy out for us, so.
You know what?
Like a fertilizer, like
Work
a,
ourselves to death
I
and
know,
hire.
yeah.
like a fertilizer.
Guy's got a good cannon.
A fertilizer spreader.
Okay. The UAC Annual Convention, we're all signed up for that.
Do we need to get a basket?
Yes, we are in the process of putting together a basket. I actually bought the basket tonight on my way here. Bryson has some things already given to us, but we need everybody to think about things you could get donated. I know last year you got us a Blackstone grill.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we'll have another grill.
Okay, and we'll get some Utah State things. And if anybody has any, like, ideas of things that they think would be really cool to put in that basket, we'll get some things from our gift shop, and we'll have that ready to go. Bryson and Andrew and I'll get that. But if any help that you guys want to give, any ideas or things that you can get donated would be wonderful. Okay, council member reports. Barbara.
I have nothing to report.
Okay.
Yeah, you heard about a lot of my boards. The
Yeah.
CEO board, airport, so I think
Okay.
I'm good.
Nolan?
I've talked with the state water engineer. He has an opening the 11th of September or the 18th. I'm trying to verify that with some other people, like I want others there. So that's what I'm shooting for discussion on our moratorium on water and septic tanks.
And Andrew and I discussed that we need to have a joint meeting again with the planning and zoning. And so as soon as will you let Andrew know when
Sure.
that's appropriate to do? And we'll get that on the schedule.
Tomorrow for one of the others and
Okay,
then we'll go from there.
perfect. Catherine?
Nothing.
David?
On the calendar, I believe it's September 18th. I hope everyone got an invite out to the Utah Flour Mills.
I
Oh, I didn't.
Up there at, they're having a tours and the ribbon cutting.
Is
What
that by
time?
the Pepperidge Farm?
Just north of Pepperidge Farm.
Yeah, but
and-
what time? On the 18th.
Oh, boy. I'll have to look that one up.
Maybe send us a text or.
I'll forward the email. I thought everyone got the email. Anyway,
It was
it's,
exclusively to you.
Are we even invited?
Yeah,
Is it
are you
just
sure we're
you?
invited?
I'm sure
You're gonna have to retract that.
Okay.
No, I can't. I'll be fishing in Alaska on that day, so.
Oh, darn.
But it,
Awesome, good for you.
and I've toured it already, but it is I tell you, as far as automation and and bulk and everything that's happening there, it is literally like taking a big huge leap in creating, two different factories and providing, and working together. I tell you, it's amazing. But it would be well worth going. And then, I believe Saturday night, you guys all got that invite?
For the football game.
Okay. I was gonna say, I hope everyone can be
You
there.
get invited to the football game Saturday night?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Wait a minute,
I have a wedding.
that's this Saturday, right?
This Saturday, the 30th.
Casey's is the week after, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure that.
Farm raising.
Anyway, I think that'd be a fun activity for us there to get together. And then I hope you take my options to scale back on the budget seriously.
We do.
This time.
Yes, sir.
Mark?
We covered what I've been involved in since our last meeting with the CEO board.
Well, I do have, go ahead, Mark.
Well, as the chair, I think you should.
No, I was just gonna say the Fallen Heroes program was awesome.
It was so nice.
It was a little long, a little long,
It just needs
but
more.
it
Was Sean giving the
awesome.
speech?
We're
or
back.
what?
More bagpipe.
Bagpipes are cool.
Well, and the reason I deferred to you, Barbara, was because I think it turned out great to be a collaboration with the America 250.
Right,
Which you chair, so.
right.
Yeah, it was, I hope you felt something. I did, and I knew
I
it was
did.
coming.
I loved it. It was great. Mark and I had our first Board of Equalization hearing this morning, our first 3 hours, and as you guys all come to do your Board of Equalization times, Diana will give you there's new legislation that's passed, so we have some decisions to make, to all think about together. The state is gonna require for next year that we would all go to a one-day training. Right now, it's scheduled to be in Salt Lake, but they're talking they could possibly come up here and do one for the tri-counties, but we'd have to do a full day of training to be able to do the Board of Equalization hearings. And the other option for that we need to consider is if we hire a hearing officer to do all of them for us, but it would cost up to probably $20,000. Mark and I discussed it, we like the connection with people and kind of being a part of that, but there's gonna be a cost to it of training, and some way we need to be aware that that's coming, and as you go through those hearings, kind of think to yourself, do we wanna keep doing it this way? Or do we wanna maybe take some more money out of our budget and hire a hearing officer? So, that was it. And I found out, I went to the CMPO meeting yesterday, and Paul Borup was just appointed to the Transportation Board in our state. And so that's, any of you that want to give Paul congratulations, I talked to him last night, he's pretty excited about that.
That'll be good representation for the valley.
Really good representation for our valley, so that's good. And I feel like I'm busy all the time, but I don't have anything to report. Just keep trying to work on the budget. So and I wanted to thank you all specifically for tonight's discussions and all the other discussions that we've had. I think that we have an amazing group of people with diverse ideas, and I think that's what makes us solid. I really do. I really appreciate the representation that we have and the discussions that we can have and the respect we can have as we have those discussions. So thank you all. And I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
One thing, thanks to the chair for all the time put in, vice chair as well, and all of those who have served as chair, you guys do not get enough recognition.
Thank you. Okay.
So moved.
Oh, I forgot to get out my gavel. We're done. I didn't even have it out tonight.